Welcome to Clear to Close, Austin Real Estate Law and Title.
Welcome back to Clear to Close, Austin Real Estate Law and Title with Ed Ishmael of Midtown Title and Ishmael Law Firm in Austin, Texas. Midtown works with builders, developers, agents, and lenders on residential and commercial real estate transactions with a strong focus on infill development and condo regime projects. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about what actually goes into setting up a condo regime project in Austin and the issues developers need to think through before moving forward. Ed, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Ed, once a builder decides to move forward with a condo regime project, what does the process actually look like from the very beginning?
So a client has, let's say, purchased a lot, an infill lot in Austin, on which they want to build multiple dwellings. They will come to us either prior to buying the lot or just after buying the lot. If they come to us prior to buying the lot, we can help them go through a process of deciding whether or not that lot is good for what they are wanting to do. So one of the main issues that comes up often are deed restrictions, plat or deed restrictions that are imposed by the initial developer of the subdivision on each lot. And there are certain restrictions that make it more difficult and sometimes impossible to build multiple dwellings on a lot. So if a client comes to us early enough, we can help them look at deed restrictions and decide whether or not, because of the deed restrictions or in spite of deed restrictions, they can do what they want to do. Also, builders, in looking at a lot, have to think about other issues, at least in Austin. They have to think about trees and whether they're protected or not. They have to think about power lines and whether with the buffers around power lines that Austin Energy requires, they're still going to have enough room on their lot in order to build what they want to build. They have to consider, in looking at the deed restrictions, whether or not the setbacks on the lot are more restrictive than what the city of Austin requires. So on an infill lot, generally, you have an area of the lot within which the city will allow you to build. And historically, the front setback was 25 feet. But under the home initiative, which we talked about last time for a minute, now the setback in the front for a lot on which you're building multiple units is 15 feet. And then the side setback, if it's an interior lot, is 5 feet, and the rear setback is 5 feet. On a corner, it's a little different. All of that is to say a builder has to be conscious of the city setbacks and then look at the restrictions, because even though that front setback now under the home initiative is 15 feet, some of the restrictions still say that the front setback for any house has to be 25 feet and even 30 feet. And unfortunately, those restrictions trump the city restrictions.
What decisions made early in the project tend to have the biggest impact later once the legal, the legal title and closing work starts coming together?
Well, the number one decision is, should you have bought the lot in the first place? Because there are times when clients come to us in the middle of a project, towards the end of the project, to have us start working on the condo regime, and we find out that they didn't really pay attention to the restrictions. And according to the deed restrictions, they should have never actually built two dwellings to begin with. So that can be one of the issues. The other issue for developers in deciding whether or not to impose a condo regime is just sort of the structure itself and how it sometimes is difficult to explain to buyers what exactly is involved with a condo regime, what it means that there will be a condominium owners association, even on a 2 or 3 unit small condo regime, what that means as far as their interaction with their neighbors. So those are some of the challenges that come up as far as whether a builder wants to impose a condo regime. But again, if the builder has built on an infill lot multiple dwellings, they're either going to have to try to subdivide or impose a condo regime. So if they've already started building, they're going to want to impose a condo regime more than likely.
So a condo regime project involves a lot of coordination between different parties. Where do most often see communication or process issues start creating those delays?
So when a client comes to us, the process we usually go through is talking to them on the phone, finding out exactly what the project is, if and giving them pricing. And then if they want to move forward, my paralegal, who is amazing, sends out an introductory email with this form that's called an information needed form. That information needed form asks a lot of questions, the answers to which help us get started on the process. As you said, there are a lot of movable parts. Sometimes it's like herding cats because what we have to do for clients often is deal with surveyors to help do the final survey once the dwellings are built, and then to also create the condominium plat, which is required by statute. We deal with lenders because if there's a mortgage on the property, then we have to get lender consent in order to impose the condo regime. And then if the developer is an entity, we have to coordinate amongst the members of the LLC or the partners of a partnership to get everybody to sign on the documents that we create once they're created.
So how much does the underlying property itself shape the structure of the condo regime and the strategy behind that project?
The characteristics of a particular lot are more important to the developer as to what they want to build on the lot. But again, in Austin, there are a lot of rules and regulations that you have to pay attention to. Um, for instance, the deed restrictions we talked about earlier. If there are any power lines on the property, you have to worry about creek buffer zones, erosion hazard zones, and sometimes those are sort of difficult to determine because even in a dry creek bed that only crosses just a portion of the lot that you're interested in, there could be a creek buffer zone or erosion hazard zone that you wouldn't necessarily know what's going to be there unless you check some of the maps that the city has. You also obviously want to make sure it's not in a floodplain because that can be very difficult to build on, and sometimes you can't build on it at all.
So what parts of the process tend to surprise developers for the first time they go through a condo regime project?
So once a developer has built on the lot multiple units, multiple dwellings, and they come to us to do a condo regime, some of the things that surprise them about a condo regime, probably number one would be that each of these condo regimes, no matter how many dwellings are involved in the development, have to have a condominium owners association that's required by statute. And if builders are not familiar with the condominium regime process, then they often want to know, what does that involve? What does that mean my buyers are going to have to do? And so we have to explain to them what that involves, what that entails. Part of what we do for developers is create that condo association by filing certain documents with the Secretary of State and the Comptroller's office. So we handle the creation of that condominium owners association, but we still generally have to explain to a new developer what exactly that means. And then they in turn have to explain that to potential buyers that haven't really had to deal with an infill condo regime before.
Ed, can you share an example of a project where every planning and coordination made a major difference in how smoothly everything moved forward?
When a developer first approaches us about imposing a condo regime, one of the questions we ask is, who is your surveyor? Because that matters in the end when you go to create the condo plat. There are surveyors who will do general surveys, boundary surveys, and will even start with you on the process of developing and go with you all the way through to the final survey when the dwellings and all of the flat work, meaning sidewalks, driveways, and all, are finished. And then we've had those surveys be brought to us by the developer for us to mark them up to create the actual condominium plat that's required by the statute. And when we mark up that survey and send it back to that surveyor, the surveyor's like, oh, I don't do condo plats. That causes all kinds of issues, not only delays, but more expense because that developer is going to have to hire a new surveyor. That new surveyor is not going to want to use the work of the other surveyor. So they're going to essentially have to start from scratch, and it's going to cost a lot of money. Another issue that can come up is lender consent. So if there's a mortgage on the property, the developer is going to have to get lender consent in order to impose the condo regime. Many lenders now, at this point in Austin, understand the process. There are still some that do not understand the process of imposing a condo regime. So we encourage our developers to go to their lender early on, let them know what's happening, and make sure that there's not going to be an issue at the end.
So, to kind of wrap things up, before pursuing a condo regime project in Austin, what should developers realistically understand about the level of planning and organization these projects require compared to more traditional development models?
Well, actually, one of the good things about imposing a condo regime is that there isn't necessarily a lot of planning that has to be done by the developer. Once a developer has the lot that they want to use, once they've determined that they can build the number of units they want to build, once they've completed the construction and they come to us for a condo regime, we pretty much handle the process from then on. So it's not that imposing a condo regime is more difficult. I think imposing a condominium regime is actually easier.
Thank you so much, Ed, for the information. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on Clear to Close Austin Real Estate Law and Title with Ed Ishmael of Midtown Title and Ishmael Law Firm. If you'd like to learn more about Midtown Title, Ishmael Law Firm as well, or condo regime and infill development projects in the Austin area, visit midtowntitle.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and join us the next time for another conversation about real estate development, title, and legal strategy in Austin, Texas. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.